So we were saying earlier that seems like a lot of the people that are proposing these climate policies have very little scientific experience, especially in the realm of geology. So let me bring on a geologist, Dr. Gregory Wrightstone, author of the book Inconvenient Facts, the Science That Al Gore Doesn't Want You to Know. How you doing, sir?
Oh, really good. I had to suffer through that almost 7 hours last night, so I did it so you wouldn't have to do it.
Well, no, I sat there. I'd like to know what the carbon footprint was. I would like to know how many private jets and how many limousines and how many foot candles of light and power were used to run that 7 hour. And the set was kind of, I love the whole like Disney spaceship Earth kind of feel to it with the futuristic white chairs.
Yeah, boy, and they had to, they probably didn't have to look too hard, but boy, it seemed like there were a lot of Earth Mother types there and New Age hippies with man buns asking questions.
Yeah, the Bernie lady. I mean, some of these people that were asking questions, I'm like, where is the barrel that you scraped the bottom of to get this studio audience?
Oh, my God. But, you know, I learned a lot from that. I really did. And I think the biggest, in fact, I'm writing commentary about that right now. I think the biggest thing I learned is Donald Trump's going to win in a landslide. Because these guys, what rational thinking person would actually vote for someone that wants to actually deindustrialize the United States and cause everybody's taxes to go up, increase the cost on everything, and take away our freedoms? Why would you vote for that? Well, I can see the guys with the man buns and the Earth Mother could do it, but if you think you're going to get 50% of the vote in the next presidential election espousing the Green New Deal and taking away, they want everyone to go to an electric car, for crying out loud. And it's crazy. And what's their main goal here with this climate change proposal? They want to change the temperature of the Earth. Isn't that really what they're after? They think they can do it. They want to control the uncontrollable. And sorry, wake up, Elizabeth Warren, wake up all the rest. You can't do it. The carbon dioxide is not the thermostat of the Earth.
I was reading the work of a geologist, maybe you know him from circles, named John Valley from the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
No.
And you know, look, I know academics change universities, but the paper I was reading was from 11 years ago. And these geologists from Wisconsin, Madison, had posited, and I'll just read a real quick paragraph from their paper. Acid rain and the greenhouse effect. The early Earth is thought to have had extremely high levels of carbon dioxide, perhaps 10,000 times as much as today. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere could continue, combine with water to create acid rain. All of those levels, carbon dioxide, you would have had vicious acid rain and immense greenhouse effects. That is a condition that will deserve rocks, said John Valley. If granites were on the surface of the Earth, they would have been destroyed almost immediately, geologically speaking, and the only remains that we would recognize as ancient would be zircons. So, you know, again, I like to read live science. I was reading this passage to a previous guest. But if they're right that there was this high level of acid rain, and some could argue it could be the result of volcanoes, the argument the Democrat left is making is that human activity is the sole driver of this. How would it be possible for early Earth to have acid rain if the combustion engine hadn't been invented yet?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the Precambrian area. That would have been 600 plus million years ago. Since that time, though, carbon dioxide levels have been much, much higher than they are now, but not that high. I mean, we're at a little over 400 parts per million right now, but the average throughout Earth's history going back to the Precambrian was 2,600 parts per million. So think about this, Andrew. CO2 levels, when the flowering plants, they're called angiosperms, first evolved, those are the plants, most of the plants that we rely on for our food, they evolved when CO2 levels were 2,500 parts per million. And they've dropped, CO2 levels have dropped almost precipitously in a straight line from that. And again, we're at 400. So now just think about this, and your listeners should think about this. So CO2 levels have dropped over 2,000 parts per million since the flowering plants first evolved. And what we're being told is the 130 part per million increase since the Industrial Revolution, we should be terrified of 130 part per million increase after it's dropped over 2,000. And it's crazy. These plants that we rely on, most of the flowering plants evolved at these much higher CO2 levels, and they grow faster, bigger. They use less water as we introduce more CO2. We've talked before. I'm a huge proponent of the many benefits of the rise in temperatures, actually the thankful warming temperatures as we came out of the cold little ice age. We see many, many, many benefits, and I see an Earth that's thriving, prospering, and greening, and humanity is prospering and benefiting because of it. And if we looked, Andrew, it's absolutely crazy. If we look in our history's rearview mirror, if we look back the last 100 years, what do we see? Everything's getting better. It's life expectancy is increasing. Our air and water are continue to get cleaner and better. Our food production is outpacing population growth. They look in the future and see nothing but doom, demise, and despair, and destruction. There's another D word for you. But it's a crazy world that these people live in, and it was pretty telling, all the crazy things and the justifications for what they want to do. They're just wrong. I mean, they're using hurricanes and this Hurricane Dorian as an example of what climate change is doing to us, when the fact of the matter is they're saying that the number of hurricanes are increasing, the intensity is increasing, and the latest thing is that climate change is causing them to move slower, so they're more destructive. All those three things can be absolutely countered with science, facts, and data that just show just the opposite.
One of the things I also found myself interested in, and I asked the question, why are we not hearing about this, is the Milankovitch cycle, which posits the idea that there are cooling and warming periods based on Earth's orbits. I know we all have that model. We all have that model of showing perfect circles, in our classrooms. But
it doesn't work that way, does it?
Right. So, I should say that's the theory. If that is the case, that Earth's orbit is not perfectly circular, that would mean at times we're closer and at times further from the sun, which would affect Earth's temperature.
Yeah, those are the Milankovitch cycles were actually first postulated by a janitor that was completely uneducated. He came up with, Andrew Kroll was his name, at Cambridge, and he was later given a doctorate, awarded a doctorate. And then Milankovitch really popularized it. But you're right; those are the big cycles: the Earth's wobble.
Wait, you're telling me this is a Good Will Hunting thing?
Maybe. I'm not familiar. I'm showing my ignorance.
You've never seen Good Will Hunting?
Oh man, I'm a climate geek.
You got to watch the movie Good Will Hunting. Anyway, okay. Go on.
Yeah. But these cycles, it's the wobble of the Earth, the eccentricity of the Earth's ocean. And there's a thing called the precession of the equinoxes and things like that. Those are the big drivers of 100,000 year, 41,000 years, 15,000 year cycles. The things that are important today, and what I like to do is look back over the last 10 or 12,000 years since the end of the last ice age and look at those. We're in this interglacial period, and look at the warming periods that we've seen before. These warming periods, and I've identified 9 of those using ice core data. All 9 were warmer than what we are today. 5 of the 9 had rates of warming higher than we've seen over the last 150 or so years. But we're being told that our temperatures today are unusual and unprecedented. And here's the thing, Andrew, too, that your listeners are going to go, I didn't know that, is before climate science became politicized, the warming periods were called climate optima, and they were called climate optima for a reason, because the Earth's ecosystems and humanity benefited greatly. And that's just opposite of what we're being told. We're being told, oh my God, we have to hold warming to less than 1.5 degrees. No, we don't. What's happened? We need to look back at what happened during the last warming period. What happened to the time before? Huge civilizations rose up during these periods. It's the cold periods that are horrific. The cold brings on famine, crop failure, and mass depopulation.
Well, the Democrats said, whoa, they have a plan for that, more abortions.
Yeah. I just saw there was Bernie Sanders equating that more abortions would be good for climate change. Yeah, well, Sorry, Bernie, I'm not buying into that nonsense.
Well, by that standard, we should just elect a Stalinist leader, right? If we run out of food, we just starve some people.
Yeah, and actually, this is the philosophy. The El Paso shooter, the Christchurch, New Zealand shooter, the Unabomber, they all held this belief in this Malthusian philosophy of overpopulation. And the El Paso shooter basically said, we need to thin the herd. And that's what he was doing in El Paso. He said he just wanted to start with the immigrants first. And that's really gone unreported, is his radical environmentalism. And
we talked about it. I got to be honest. We talked about it. We read verbatim his talk about the degradation of the environment and corporations and all this other stuff. So yeah, we pointed out not exactly an Airfingers quote, right wing kind of view.
No, not at all. And the key there with that as we talk about that is, I don't know anyone that holds his white supremacist viewpoints, but I know a whole lot of people that agree exactly with him about the environment. And that's what's scary. I'm not going to read all. I get a lot of hate mail and emails and messages and it's, people don't like me because I'm telling the truth and the scientific facts that aren't usually presented. And that is that of a thriving and prospering Earth. And your listeners should sleep well tonight because they're not destroying the Earth. The Earth is thriving and prospering. It's probably one of the biggest untold stories of the early 21st century.
I got to leave it there because by top of the hour, music's going to kick in. The book is Inconvenient Facts, the science that Al Gore doesn't want you to know. Gregory Wrightstone, thank you so much for joining us. Greg, we'll have you back. Thank you very much for joining us. All right, Wine 695.